Hello guys, may I introduce myself? My name is Dora, but some of you guys might have seen me before. Today, I will be the one who guides you to the background of imperialism. Have you ever heard about imperialism before? If not, let's get started! First, to begin with, we'll get into the basics of religion. As the story goes, the imperial powers of Europe set their sights on new geographic regions to expand their empire, the spheres of influence. Sadly, some of us may forget that European colonization destroyed traditional societies and economies of the area they colonized. Famous poet Rudyard Kipling popularized one term, white man's burden, to justify the power of imperialist expansion morally. Before we go to the next, let's find 3 words starting with the letter C. These are words that are related to the white man's burden philosophy. Time's out! Those words are the 3 C's of colonialism: civilization, Christianity, and commerce. One of the influences is a religion by missionaries. Continuing, mistakes were made by missionaries who believed that becoming a Christian is righteous without knowing that they are slowly abandoning their indigenous cultures. But did you know that missionaries do know this? Among the Westerners missionaries, there was a belief that traditional religious beliefs and practices were inferior to theirs. They believed that these traditional customs had to be taken care of before locals opened their hearts to Christianity to accept the religion. This was resisted impassionately. On and on the story goes. We have to come to know that religion is also one of the reasons why these big powers started imperializing, known as the missionary impulse. It's the idea that Christianity has to be spread around the world because it is superior to other religions and urge to spread it. Back in those days, there was this term called Christianized. It refers to when the Christian believers, missionaries, try to get control of a certain region to spread their faith and convert these locals into Christian believers like them. The sword follows the cross. In faraway land, the beginning of this journey begins. Since the fall into sin, God, His wisdom, has ordained 2 powers to help remedy the situation into which sin has placed the world. These are the power of the keys, the power of the cross, and the power of the sword. The sword follows the cross, the term that is also related to the white man's burden. It was a long time ago that missionaries are given a mission from God to go spread the Christian faith. Legend, old saying, suggests that the sword would follow the cross, like how missionaries would follow God's will to spread Christianity. Interestingly, the cross is a symbol of God's love that became a sword. What people might not know is that missionaries do represent Jesus Christ. They are saving people from their sins, helping them find greater happiness and joy by inviting people to come unto Christ the Lord and to convert to His restored gospel. Except that these 2 symbols are what constituted the strategies used by the Spaniards in invading the Philippines. The pacifications of the natives is a lot easier for them. If you are a little too confused, let me simplify it for you. The cross is the symbol of the religion, and the sword is a symbol of force that is used to colonize the land. Finally, coming to the end of the chapter, the missionaries' task was to spread Christian ideologies all over the world through colonial power. Their 3 major purposes in doing so are to convince the government that they needed to be colonized, to preach Christianity to locals in order to spread the power of governing, and lastly, to civilize the colonial as a role model for the other European nations to follow the path. And That is the end of chapter 1. Next up will be about the curse of Ham.
We might have the question when coming to this story. Are black people the result of the curse of Ham? The answer is absolutely not, but because people misinterpret Genesis. Before we go into detail, we will review some of the basic story first. After the flood of Noah and his 3 sons and the wife began to repopulate the earth, we are told that Noah was a man of the soil. Noah began to be a husbandman, and he planted a vineyard. And he drank of the wine and was drunken, and he was uncovered within his tent. Then Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his 2 brethren without. Later, Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both their shoulders and went backward, covered the naked of their father, and their feet were backward. So they did not see their father's nakedness. Then Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done unto him. And he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. And he said, Blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tent of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. Ham is not directly cursed for his actions. Instead, the curse falls upon his younger son, Canaan. The curse of Ham, son of Noah, is reported in Genesis. Ham's son, Conan, was cursed by Noah to be the servant of servants because Ham did not protect his father's dignity upon seeing him asleep naked. The suggestion that the dark African skin came from military biblical curse marks. The African body fundamentally different from and inferior to the body of white Europeans. Also, biblical statement that God shall enlarge Japheth was used by some Christians as a justification for the enlargement of European territory through imperialism, which was interpreted as part of God's plans for the world. The subjugation of Africans was likewise justified by the curse of Ham. Moreover, there is room in the land for Japheth to be superior over Ham's descendant. How did the story of Noah's son Ham contribute to colonialism? As Japheth and his sons spread all over Europe after he and his brother Shem ruled over the descendant of Ham, who was cursed to be the minor race below them. For example, Benjamin Morgan Palmer claimed that white Europeans were descended from Japheth, who was prophesied by Noah to cultivate civilization in the powers of the intellect, while Africans, being descendants from the cursed Ham, were destined to be possessed by a slavish nature ruled by base appetites. Why is imperialism connected to race and religions? It all rounds back to the idea that one religion and race is more superior than the other. The idea that the superior country have to take control of the inferior one. In this case, Asia was seen as inferior to the Europeans, which is why they were about to be conquered. Moreover, countries in Southeast Asia back in those days didn't have specific identities of their own, making it a lot easier for the greater countries to colonize them. Example given, Philippines and Malaysia.
Next one, chapter 3. From what we have mentioned above, we can see that people mostly refer to the Bible, especially race. In addition, race based on skin color simply is not a biblical concept, and the notion that the Bible labels one race as superior to another is even further off the mark. It is a harmful, misreading, and misunderstanding of the biblical text. On the other hand, countries like India also have records of racialism during British rule. However, the very modern racial ideas in India began during imperialism, specifically the British colonization period. Apparently, India was introduced to the idea of racism in 1500 BC with the idea of the otherness to the other ethnic as well as other social groups. Europeans who came to India would divide into different groups in terms of ethnic classes. Now, you might have known the word racism before, but let's find out further detail together. It is the belief that humans may be divided into separate and exclusive biological entities called races. Racism was at the heart of North American slavery and the colonization and empire-building activities of Western Europeans. Europeans wished to dominate regions of the world and exploit their resources, but they felt they need a philosophical justification to do. More fact. The advantage of the Westerner is that the Westerner had military and technological capabilities to see upon a racist philosophy and turn it into a mission. As a result, it led to the idea of inequality of the races, white man burden, and a religious right to spread Christianity. Therefore, racism in Europe was driven by the early philosophers of the racist dogma. One of them was author Comte de Compiègne, French aristocrat, writer, diplomat, and social thinker. He wrote a book, an essay on the inequality of the human races. It makes him infamous for advocating developing the racist theory of the Iron Master race and concluding that race was the single most important factor determining the nature of human society. This book attempts to create, first, race was the single most important factor determining the nature of human society. Second, a science of history connecting the rise and fall of civilizations with race. Third, as he considered the Bible to be a reliable source of history, he wrote that Adam is the originator of our white species, and all other races were not part of human species. And the fourth one, the biblical division into Hamites, Semites, and Japhethites is the division between the white race. Now we come to the last chapter, chapter 4. Are Westerners the only race in the world? One of the factors that contribute to the race ideas can be traced back to the conquest, domination, and resource fighting by the Europeans, because this involved them getting in contact with people from different parts of the world, including Africa, Asia, and Americas. Today, not only Americans are racist toward Asians, but there is also transparent proof that Chinese are racist as well. The Chinese are another proof that Asians are racist to the Westerners as well for calling them white devils. Moreover, the Chinese were anti-foreigners. The Chinese also have historically been xenophobia and anti-foreign as they call the Europeans white devils. Majorly, the Chinese are racist toward Africans. For instance, the Chinese would stick up a sign saying, "No black men allowed in McDonald's in China." Also, in India, people have practiced caste system for thousands of years. So the word castle in Hindi means color. Moreover, Indians also developed a form of racism in their cultures through the caste system for a very long period of time. Furthermore, the caste system in India began with a racist origin rather than a social and economical standpoint. Now we have come so far, let me help you to summarize the story from what we had told you, including: first, Bible is misinterpreted. Second, philosophy and the book is racism. Third, religion is God's plan. And the fourth one, the development of weapons, military, and ability to seize power. This is the final answer that made Westerner racism have more potent effects during the age of imperialism. Before we finish this book, there is a racist idea that scholars believe during this time period. First, there is the belief that race creates a culture. Second, there was a distinction between the three races, which are black, white, and yellow, were natural barriers. Third, there was the word miscegenation, which means the mixing of the races. It would lead to the chaos and the destruction of civilization. For example, if the poor Aryan race mixed with the others, civilization would be destroyed. Fourth, white race is superior and responsible for all the great advanced civilization in history.
Alright, you have to answer to two questions. The first one is, in your opinion, what is the major cause leading to the idea of inferiority? And the second one is, do you believe in the idea of the white man's burden? Why and why not?